If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge. And when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. Departure into the unknown. The Dyatlov group sets out. January 1959. The winter morning of January 23, 1959, felt crisp and promising in Sverdlovsk. 10 young adventurers gathered at the train station, their breath forming small clouds in the frozen air. They carried heavy backpacks stuffed with winter gear, food, and cameras. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, checked his watch one final time. These weren't ordinary college students. They belonged to the Ural Polytechnical Institute's hiking club. Each person had earned their place through years of mountain experience. They knew snow, cold, and danger. They respected the wilderness. Their plan seemed simple. Travel north to Mount Otorten, a peak whose name meant "don't go there" in the local Mansi language. The route had been approved by university officials. Every detail had been checked twice. The group laughed and joked as the train pulled away from the city. Cameras clicked constantly. Someone started a song. Their diary entries from those first days read like a holiday adventure. Words like excellent mood and great weather filled the pages. Igor Dyatlov had mapped every mile of their journey. First, they would take the train to Ivdel, then a truck to Vizhai. This small settlement marked the last place with people, warm beds, and help. Beyond Vizhai lay only forest, mountains, and silence. The truck ride to Vizhai bounced them through snow-covered trees. Everyone seemed excited. Photos show smiling faces and easy conversations. Nobody spoke of fear. Why would they? This group had conquered difficult mountains before. At Vizhai, the local Mansi people watched the students prepare. These indigenous hunters knew the forest better than anyone. They offered no warnings. The weather looked calm. The route seemed safe enough for experienced hikers. But then came the first change in their perfect plan. Yuri Yudin fell sick. His friends gathered around him, concerned. His fever climbed. His stomach cramped. The group faced a hard choice. Yudin made the decision himself. He would return home. The others should continue without him. Tearful goodbyes followed. Cameras captured final hugs and promises to share stories later. 9 friends now stood where 10 had started. They shouldered their packs and walked into the forest. Yudin watched them disappear between the trees. He turned back toward civilization. The remaining group moved deeper into the wilderness. Their final photographs show confident faces and steady progress. They built campfires, cooked meals, and wrote in their diaries. Everything appeared normal. January 30th, 1959, marked their last day of documented normal behavior. After this date, the careful records stop. The cheerful diary entries end. The smiling photographs become evidence in a mystery that would haunt the world for decades. What happened next would transform their simple hiking trip into one of history's most puzzling disappearances. 9 experienced adventurers would never return home. Silent night on Kholat, Syakhl. The tragic event unfolds. February 1st to 2nd, 1959. Something terrible happened that February night in 1959. The 9 hikers had settled into their tent on the mountain slope, writing their final diary entries by flashlight. Igor Dyatlov noted the strong winds outside. The group seemed calm, even playful. One member joked about the abominable snowmen in the area. Then, everything changed. Searchers found their tent weeks later, and what they saw made no sense. Sharp cuts sliced through the canvas from the inside. Not tears from wind or animals, but deliberate slashes made by knives. The hikers had cut their way out of their own shelter. Why would anyone do this? The tent still stood upright, held down by their belongings inside. Boots sat neatly arranged. Warm coats hung unused. Food remained untouched. Whatever drove them out happened so fast they left everything behind. Outside, footprints told a strange story. The tracks showed bare feet and socks in snow that was 20 degrees below zero. Some prints revealed people walking calmly, not running in panic. But where were they going? The footprints led down the slope toward a line of trees over a mile away. The search teams followed those ghostly tracks through the snow. What they found still puzzles investigators today. 2 bodies lay beneath a tall cedar tree. They wore almost nothing. Branches high above were broken, as if someone had climbed up in desperate fear. A small fire had been built, but it barely warmed anyone. 3 more bodies appeared between the cedar and the tent. They seemed to be trying to crawl back to safety. Their leader, Igor, lay face up in the snow with his hands pressed against his chest. His watch had stopped. The final 4 hikers were discovered much later, buried deep in a ravine. These bodies showed the most disturbing injuries: broken ribs, crushed skulls, missing eyes and tongue. Yet their clothes had no cuts or tears. Something had hurt them from the inside. No signs of a fight existed anywhere. No footprints from strangers. No weapons left behind. The official investigation found no evidence of other people on that mountain. But 9 healthy, experienced hikers had fled their tent in terror, trading certain death from cold for escape from something unknown. Medical experts confirmed they died from hypothermia and injuries. But what could frighten trained mountaineers so badly that they chose to face the killing cold rather than stay inside their shelter? The mountain keeps its secrets, and the truth remains buried deeper than those footprints in the snow. Disturbing discoveries, recovery and early investigation. February to May 1959. The first search team reached the abandoned tent on February 26th. What they found made no sense. The tent had been cut open from the inside. Sharp, deliberate slashes through the canvas. Nobody cuts their way out of shelter in freezing weather unless something terrible drives them to it. The searchers stared at the scene in silence. Shoes sat neatly arranged inside the tent. Food remained untouched. Personal items lay scattered but undisturbed. Everything suggested the group had fled in panic, leaving behind the very things they needed to survive. Days passed. More bodies appeared across the mountainside. Some lay in the snow near the tent, barely clothed. Others were found much farther away, buried under several feet of snow in a ravine. The discovery pattern made no sense to anyone. The first autopsies began in March. Medical examiner Dr. Boris Vozrojdeny documented his findings with growing confusion. 3 hikers had died from hypothermia. Their bodies showed no signs of struggle or violence, but 4 others told a different story entirely. Ludmila Dubinina's body was missing her tongue and eyes. The soft tissue was gone, removed with what appeared to be surgical precision. Semyon Zolotaryov had massive chest trauma. His ribs were crushed inward with tremendous force, yet his skin showed no external wounds or bruises. The medical reports raised more questions than answers. How does a human chest cave in without any visible damage to the surface? What removes soft tissue so cleanly in the dead of winter? The doctors had no explanations. Soviet investigators arrived from Moscow. They photographed everything. They measured. They took detailed notes. The evidence files grew thick with documentation. But the mystery only deepened. Clothing found on the bodies contained unusual levels of radiation. Not enough to kill, but enough to register clearly on detection equipment. Where had this contamination come from? The mountain held no nuclear facilities. Family members demanded answers. They pressed officials for details about their loved ones' final moments. The authorities promised thorough investigation. They spoke of scientific analysis and careful review. But weeks turned to months, and satisfactory explanations never came. By May, the official conclusion was complete. The report blamed an unknown compelling force for the deaths. No criminal charges would be filed. The case was closed to public inquiry. That phrase haunted everyone who read it. An unknown compelling force. What did that mean exactly? Soviet investigators were trained in facts and evidence. They dealt with concrete explanations. Yet here they were, admitting complete bewilderment. The families were left with fragments of truth and shadows of doubt. Their questions would echo for decades, growing louder with each passing year. Enduring Questions, Re-examinations and Competing Theories, 1959 to 2020. The empty folder sat closed for years, but the families never forgot. Mothers and fathers knocked on office doors. They asked hard questions. They wanted real answers about their children. Scientists heard the whispers too. Something about this case felt wrong. The official story had holes big enough to walk through. So they started digging. In the 1990s, new voices joined the search. Computer experts ran models. They tested wind patterns and snow loads. Weather specialists studied old reports from that February night. Each study painted a different picture. One team found something strange in the sound waves. They called it infrasound. These invisible waves can make people panic without warning. They can create fear so strong that experienced hikers might run into deadly cold. The theory made sense until other experts proved the conditions were wrong that night. Military researchers whispered about secret tests. Had the Soviet army been experimenting nearby? Some documents hinted at unusual activities in the region, but the military files stayed locked away. The hints led nowhere solid. Doctors studied the injuries again. They used new tools and fresh eyes. The damage to the bodies told a story of incredible force. But what kind of force? Internal bleeding without external wounds puzzled medical experts for decades. In 2019, Russian officials decided to look again. They brought modern forensic science to the old mystery. Computer simulations showed how wind could build up snow, how that snow could break free weeks after the hikers passed, how it could create injuries that looked impossible. The new investigation pointed to a delayed avalanche, not the usual kind that roars down immediately. This one waited. It built pressure slowly. Then it struck with devastating power. But even this official answer left questions hanging. Why did the hikers cut their way out from inside the tent? Why were some bodies found so far away? Why did radiation detectors click over certain clothing? Each new study seemed to solve one puzzle while creating three more. International experts offered their own theories. Psychological factors, rare weather events, equipment failure. Each explanation felt both right and wrong at the same time. The families listened to every new report. Some found peace in the avalanche theory. Others still felt doubt creeping through the official words. After 60 years, the mountain kept its secrets close. Modern technology promised final answers. But the Dyatlov Pass mystery proved stronger than computers and scientific models. It remained what it had always been, a question mark written in snow and silence. Unresolved shadows, the legacy and impact of Dyatlov Pass. The memorial stones stand quietly in the snow, marking where 9 young lives ended so suddenly. Every year, people from around the world make the difficult journey to this remote place. They come carrying flowers, questions, and a strange pull they cannot explain. The families never stopped asking why. Decades passed, but the questions grew louder, not softer. Ludmila Dubinina's mother kept her daughter's diary until she died, hoping someone might find answers in those final words. Other parents did the same. They formed a quiet circle of grief that refused to fade. Television crews began arriving in the 1990s. Documentary makers pointed their cameras at the slope where the tent was found. They interviewed the few remaining rescuers, their voices shaking as they remembered finding bodies scattered in the snow. Each film promised to solve the mystery. None ever did. The internet changed everything. Suddenly, people in Japan could study the same autopsy photos that haunted Russian investigators. Students in California wrote papers about the missing eyes and tongue. Amateur detectives shared theories across continents. The 9 hikers became global figures, their faces known by millions who had never heard of the Ural Mountains. Scientists returned to the pass with new tools. They used ground-penetrating radar and computer models to test theories about avalanches and wind patterns. Each expedition revealed more details, but fewer answers. The mountain kept its secrets locked tight. Books filled library shelves. Fiction writers created stories about government experiments and ancient curses. Academic researchers published careful studies of weather patterns and group psychology. Hollywood producers optioned scripts. The tragedy became entertainment, then education, then folklore. Russian universities began teaching courses about the incident. Students learned to examine evidence and question official reports. The case became a lens for understanding Soviet secrecy and modern investigative methods. What started as 9 friends on a winter hike became a lesson about truth and power. The families still gather on February 1st each year. They light candles and share memories of children who never grew old. Their private grief became public property, but they protect what matters most. The real people behind the headlines remain theirs alone. The pass itself remains unchanged. Snow covers the same slopes. Wind howls through the same valleys. Tour guides lead groups to the memorial site, pointing out landmarks from that terrible night. But the mountain offers no explanations, only silence. Modern technology keeps promising answers. Satellite images show every rock and tree. Computer models simulate wind patterns from 60 years ago. Yet the essential questions remain as mysterious as ever. 9 people died. We know where and when. The why remains hidden in shadow.